for our sessions this week. So we've been lucky enough to get my good mate George Walker, and nutrition dietitian, to come on tonight and chat to you girls just around sort of pre, during, post training, and just what it looks like going into tournaments. So make sure you ask lots of questions. George is similar age to a lot of you guys, so she's in the industry and someone that you can really, if you want to ask some questions, don't feel like you can't. She's very easygoing and easy to chat to. So yeah, if you have any questions, make sure you ask at the end or during. Otherwise, she'll be available on email, or you're welcome to send me for anything and I can pass on to G and get an answer for you. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Georgia.
Thanks so much, Sammy. Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me tonight. I'm really excited to chat to you all. I love doing group presentations and sort of, hearing what everyone already knows or what you might have more questions about as well. So yeah, definitely feel free to ask, use the chat box, or I'll have time at the end to chat as well. And yeah, I'll definitely leave my email. You can ask me anything at any time afterwards if you don't feel like asking about it tonight. As Sammy mentioned, I'm an accredited practicing dietitian and an accredited nutritionist. So basically that just means I did a bachelor's degree in nutrition and then a master's in dietetics to get to where I am at the moment. I'm really interested in sports nutrition and particularly team sports as well, so really suited to you guys, but that does involve a lot of one-on-one work as well with individual athletes. I have been mostly involved with footy, so I was in a VFL program with Sandringham for a couple of years, and then more recently with North Melbourne Football Club pre-COVID throughout their pre-season, but unfortunately we didn't get to have a season this year, so fingers crossed next year. I also play sport myself as well, so I'm still pretty involved in touch football. So yeah, hopefully I can relate to a lot of what you guys are doing and training and whatnot as well. I'll just share my presentation now, hopefully. So the presentation today, it'll probably go, I reckon, for about sort of 20 to 30 minutes, but yeah, definitely time for questions as well. And we'll split this across. I'll talk to you guys at the end. I want to do another presentation, which we'll hopefully sort in another sort of month or so, or even sooner, on something very important as well. So just really trying to get some main messages across today around nutrition for your performance and your recovery. They're sort of the two main goals when we talk about food and nutrition in sport. All right, so what I'll go through today is individual requirements, and so what sort of impacts different requirements for every person, your hydration, what to eat before, during and after training or in competition. I'll talk a little bit about iron and our requirements, and then I just have a little task for you guys to take away and bring back for our next presentation as well, and then some time for some questions.
We did like 39. Oh, we got a.
Good. All right, so individual requirements. So everyone is very, very different. We do have pretty, I guess, standard messages and things, which I'll sort of get across today, but everything is really individualized. So it'll be just dependent on you as a person, what you sort of have going on, your food likes and things like that as well, but usually they're dependent on these things on the screen. So your training load, so what sort of training you're doing, whether it's strength or conditioning, it's probably a mix of both, how many days a week that is, for what sort of time as well, your individual needs, what you sort of need at your sort of age, your height, your weight and things like that, because that changes person to person as well. Your training goals, so what you really want to get out of a training. So for someone it might be wanting to be better at tackling, someone maybe wants to be better at kicking, you want to work on speed and things like that. So you can really use your nutrition and your training with your coaches to help you with that as well. Body composition is another one. It can impact your performance, but it's not the number one thing in performance as well. So whether you are wanting to sort of maintain weight, lose fat, alter it that way. But as I said, it's not the main thing, but it can sometimes help with performance as well. Your general health, so if you have any other, pre-existing health conditions, if you have any dietary requirements, if you're a vegan or vegetarian athlete, this can impact your nutrition as well, what you need. You might need some more of something else. And then just growth and development, so at different stages of our lives as well, what we require for that. And this looks different during your pre-season to during your season as well. So you might have very different goals during your pre-season that you want to work on a bit more and you can sort of play around with. But then when it comes to in-season and when you're in competition, you probably don't want to change things around too much. So hydration, firstly, it's individualized as well. It'll change person to person, but it's usually dependent on your sweat rate, so how much you sweat, the sweat composition, so what your sweat is made up of, so what you're losing, like salts and things from your body, and your ability to tolerate fluids as well. So you might be someone that can gulp down a heap of water during a game or after a game, or you're someone that sort of needs to sip on water. Sports drinks, some people can't tolerate sports drinks, so like Powerades, Gatorades, it's just sometimes too sweet or gives them an upset tummy. So yeah, that again just changes person to person. Because of the short timing of a sevens game, you aren't really at a high risk of dehydration within a single game, but you definitely can be when you sort of when it comes to traveling as well. So for you guys, if you're traveling interstate to like Queensland or something, a warmer environment, even the travel as well, so having to fly, to drive and things like that, you maybe aren't having enough water around those sorts of times, and then having multiple games throughout the day as well. So if you're not hydrating between games as well as little bits during a game, this can be a risk of dehydration, but within a single game, because it's so short, you should be okay. So I've just got a sort of aim here, something that you can work on during pre-season and during your trainings and things as well, is replacing 150% of the losses. So this just means if you have scales handy, it can be useful at a training and something that you can do with coaches as well, to weigh yourself before training. I'm not sure if it's something you guys already do, but step on the scale before training, before you get your boots and things on as well. So you can do it when you finish training as well, wearing the same stuff. And just figuring out what you lose from the beginning of training to the end of training as well. And so this isn't a fat loss or a weight loss number. This is a sweat loss number. So just really figuring out how much sweat you've lost in a session, and replacing it by 150%. So what this would look like, if someone lost 1 kilo, 1 kilo of sweat, you'd want to replace it with 1.5 litres of water. And this is just within, so if you're training in the evening, just try get it in that night as well. That's just a good aim to have. So you might find that some of you guys don't lose much at all. You might find that some can lose sort of up to a couple of kilos. People do sweat a lot sometimes, especially coming into summer. So this will just really give you an idea when you are traveling, and when you have those big days of competition, maybe multiple games in a day, of how much you really should be drinking, because you already know how much you've been having during your pre-season and trainings, and how much you needed here before you've then gone away and you're competing at an even greater sort of intensity as well. So again, it's going to vary person to person, but just a good aim is sort of 2 to 3 litres a day. Just get a big 1 litre bottle of water, try to finish that 2 or 3 times at least. And then again, as we come into summer and we have hotter days, you'll likely need even more on top of that as well. So now I'm going to talk about our macronutrients and then go through what a day of eating might look like, or a day of competition as well. So you may or may not have heard of macronutrients, but really macro just means large. So these are the nutrients that we need in the largest amounts. We need them every day, and yeah, we need a really decent amount of them as well. So carbohydrates, carbs are really, really great. They're so important in your diet. They are our brain's preferred source of energy, our body's preferred source of energy. So something that's really, really important. They also provide things like fiber, whole grains, different vitamins and minerals as well. So huge fan of carbs, and something that as athletes you need probably even more of, or you do need even more of the more that you are exercising. Protein is the next one. Protein is what we use to repair and rebuild our muscles. So in that sort of recovery process, which I'll talk about a bit later, might be a bit longer than you would suspect. But again, protein is really important. It doesn't just have to come from meat products as well. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, you can get this from other sources as well, like legumes and lentils, eggs. You can get it from dairy if you have dairy as well. And then finally, just the healthy fats. So our healthy fats are our unsaturated fats. We don't need a large amount of fats, or as large as the other two, but they're really important every day as well. They're important for our brain again. They protect our organs, and they can also be helpful if you're injured. So they can help with reducing inflammation. So yeah, definitely something important to include in your diet as well. So I've got here how you would want your day to sort of look like before a game or before training. Training is a really good time to practice what we are sort of talking about today, so that when you get to those game days, you are well prepared. You know exactly how much you can have to really feel your best and perform your best on the day. So the goal of our nutrition before a game is to start it well fueled and well hydrated. So aiming for a main meal 3 to 4 hours beforehand. So if you have a day of competition when you sort of start in the morning, that'll look more like a breakfast meal. So I've got here like eggs on toast, it's got avocado and some spinach. You could also have like a big bowl of cereal or oats or something like that with, you know, some fruit, yogurt, milk. Peanut butter is a good source of healthy fats for like a brekkie meal. Then I've also got, this is a grilled burger here. So it's got grilled chicken. It's got a few colours in it as well in our vegetables. It's got the bun for our carbohydrates. And then another option there is the burrito bowl as well. That's a vegetarian one, but you can add some chicken to it. So this is a really good sort of mixed, quite balanced sort of main meal, and really just aiming to have carbohydrates, protein and fats. And then I also like to say colour as well, because we just don't eat enough vegetables, and they're really important, especially for athletes as well, to get enough vitamins and minerals and those nutrients as well from our veggies. And they also contain fluids in them as well, so it can be good for your hydration as well. And I like to just say to aim for sort of 2 to 3 colours at each of those main meals, just because the different colours provide us with different nutrients too. And so the reason we sort of aim for this 3 to 4 hours beforehand is because it has that real mix of those different macronutrients. Our body has to work a bit harder and use a bit more oxygen to break down those foods and to store them or to convert them to energy to be stored to use later. So it just takes a bit more time. So having it closer to training, our bodies just don't have that time to break it down to be used as energy. Whereas our snack that we might have, I've got 30 minutes to an hour beforehand, but again, this is going to differ person to person. You might be someone that can, have a main meal and then have a banana and a muesli bar right before training, sort of within 15, 20 minutes. You feel great. You feel really energized. And then for others, you can't eat that close to training. You might need to stretch it out and just have the banana an hour beforehand. Popcorn's another good one as well, which I really like. It's got a bit of salt in it as well, so that can be really handy as well, especially with your hydration to hold on to fluids. And then, things like a muesli bar, a sandwich or half a sandwich. This can even just be white or wholemeal bread as well. That's broken down a bit quicker with like some jam or honey, or just a piece of fruit is another one as well. So these all contain easily digested carbohydrates, so our body can break them down really quickly, convert them to energy to be used almost straight away. All right. And then normally when I talk about during, it is during a game, but because of the way that Sevens is set up and your games being so short, you shouldn't really need anything during a game except for water. If you've prepared well beforehand, so you've got your hydration right, you've had that main meal and your snack, you should be pretty set to go and won't really need anything during a game. But it's really important to be set up between your games as well. So if you're in competition and you have multiple games in a day, it's really important to get those snacks right between games, because you can sometimes be quite time poor. So you don't really have time to start back at the beginning again, have that main meal, give yourself a few hours. You may only have an hour or less, or a couple of hours between those games. So using those snacks that I had beforehand, so like your fruit, muesli bars, the popcorn, or a sandwich with just a pretty simple spread on it is good. Another good one is like an up and go, or yeah, fruit again, fruit and nut mixes, and then just always plenty of water as well to keep you hydrated. If you do have a bit longer between games, this will take a bit of timing as well, depending on your schedule. Then you can look to sort of have a main meal again, so having your lunch meal as well. But yeah, I'd really give yourself at least sort of a couple of hours between that to make sure you're not feeling too heavy in a game, and making sure you give your body enough time to really digest that food and to use it, be able to use it in the next game as well. And then afterwards, the goal afterwards is to promote that repair and recovery process. So as I mentioned, protein is really important for this. So it's sort of the main nutrient that we focus on in the post-match sort of phase and in our recovery. And this can be to get you ready for the next day of competition or your next training session as well. So the recovery process, it actually goes for sort of 24 to 48 hours after the training that we do. So it goes for a lot longer, I think, than it really is thought of. So I do have here having something within sort of 30 minutes to an hour is a good idea, purely just to start that recovery process as soon as you can. If you're having multiple training sessions in a day during your pre-season, this can be really handy as well, because you just won't have that time during the day to get in enough. But definitely the next day or two is also really important as well. So knowing foods that contain protein and trying to include those in every meal and snack is a really good place to start, just to really make sure that you're recovering properly and sort of preventing injury as well. It's really important in that. So I've got here high protein, carbohydrates, fluids and electrolytes, and something that I really love is chocolate milk. Chocolate milk contains all of those things, and it can be sort of thought of as a bit of a treat, but when you compare it to something like a protein shake, it's probably got a bit more sugar, but you sort of need carbohydrates in that recovery phase as well. So it's a lot more affordable. And if you've lost a lot of sweat, a lot of electrolytes sort of in a big day of competition, a chalky milk can be something really easy to sort of grab on your way home from training, or after a game as well. A couple of other options, you could make up a smoothie, so with dairy in it if you have dairy, so a milk and yogurt, some berries, other fruit as well, peanut butter is great, honey, and then there's these Chobani Fit yogurts. They're really, really affordable. They're almost always on sale at Coles or Woolies, so just have a look at one or the other if you haven't already tried these. These are really great. Their protein content's about the same as their normal yogurts, but it has a lot less sugar as well, so you're getting a really decent amount of protein and a lot less sugar in that sort of recovery phase, as well as having these at snack times as well. And then if you're more of a savoury person, I've just got sort of like a nut mix as well, or if you can be prepared and boil some eggs and things, that can be a great option as well. Now, I just wanted to touch on iron. Iron's really important for female athletes, just to sort of have that knowledge around. So lucky us, athletes, particularly females, are at a greater risk of iron deficiency. Athletes in general, the role of iron in our bodies, one of the roles is to transport oxygen from our lungs to our tissues. So that transport of oxygen is to our muscles that are working. So when you're exercising more, when you need more energy and strength to those muscles, you need more iron as well. And then being females, because of our menstrual cycle, we lose iron through our periods, like through our blood losses as well. So yeah, we have higher requirements until we don't have a period again, just the way it is. But yeah, definitely something to be really mindful of. And an iron deficiency can result in reduced performance, so something that you definitely would like to avoid as well. Some signs of iron deficiency: feeling flat or tired, unable to train as hard, which can sometimes go hand in hand with the menstrual cycle as well. So just sort of being aware of your body and how you might feel at one training compared to the next. You know, if you really can't get through the end of it, if you've sorted out these nutrition strategies as well and you're just really not able to perform, maybe it's something to think about as well. It might be something a bit more than just what you're eating. Poor appetite, recurring illness, so you're just feeling sick all the time, paleness, so not just being pale from a Melbourne winter, but actually quite an unwell sort of pale as well. But for some, there can also be no symptoms of an iron deficiency. So having sort of a regular blood test as well. If you have a regular doctor you go to, or any doctor you go to, you can should be able to organise a blood test, and they can assess your iron levels through that. If they're very low, the doctor might prescribe a supplement, but just really important that a supplement does come from the doctor. You don't supplement it yourself. I'd be looking more for ways that you can get more iron in your diet rather than supplementing, because we always want to look for food first when it comes to nutrients. So red meat is our best source of iron, but also other meats and things as well are a good source of iron. But for those that are vegan or vegetarian, you can get iron from other foods as well, or even if we're not. So a lot of breads and cereals and things are fortified with iron, so iron's added into it, as well as like our green leafy veg, things like legumes and lentils as well. The only thing is, when it comes from not an animal source, it's called non-heme iron. So our body, it's just not absorbed as efficiently, non-heme iron. So just a couple of tricks that we can do, combining it with a source of vitamin C. So if you're having some toast, or you're having like a breakfast cereal or something, can you have a small glass of orange juice to get some vitamin C? Or can you add some red capsicum, that's high in vitamin C, to a salad that you're having with some green leafy veg in it? Yeah, those are a couple of ways that you can help the absorption of iron, as well as avoiding caffeine around those meals as well. Caffeine and tea as well, actually, it has an acid in it that impacts our ability to absorb the iron. So best to just sort of leave it for half an hour to an hour around those meals when we're really trying to optimize the amount of iron that we can absorb from it. So that's really it for today, but yeah, definitely lots of happy to do any questions, but this is just for next time. I would like to chat through training for your menstrual cycle. There's a lot of research coming out around this. It's been around for some time, but more spoken about now, which is really important, I think, and important to have an idea of this as well. So it's really around being able to alter your training to suit your menstrual cycle, as well as your nutrition to suit that as well, because there's different stages of our menstrual cycle when we can use carbohydrates better for our training. We perform better in different stages of our menstrual cycle as well. So yeah, can be quite a heavy topic, so I thought I would leave it for its own sort of presentation as well. But I just have a task here for you guys. If you don't already, if you can just have an idea of your menstrual cycle, so the day it starts, the day it stops, the number of days it goes for, sort of have an idea of how you eat before, during and after, if you have certain cravings and things like that as well. I also think if you guys are comfortable and happy to, it's really important to have your coaches here for that session as well, just so they have an idea of it. They may already, but yeah, to be able to really be on the same page and understand why maybe some days of your cycle you're performing a lot better, and then other days you just can't do the same that you were doing the week before. A lot of elite level female teams are implementing this stuff, so they're all tracking cycles and working with their coaches and things as well, to be able to suit their training to their cycle, and yeah, seeing some really great results. I know the Matildas is definitely one of them, and I believe the Brisbane Lions girls were doing that as well. So yeah, now I've sort of got time for questions. Sammy, I don't know if I stop sharing. I'll just leave this up.
Yeah, maybe just leave that screen up. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just where you can find me as well, if you want to email or anything, but hopefully everyone can chat if they want to.
I just want to throw out some questions for Dee, and she can answer a few while she's on, if anyone wants to start.
I'm not sure if there's any in the chat box either. I don't have it on my screen at the moment, but
nothing.
Yeah, that's all right.
Georgia,
Yeah.
In terms of, and also thanks so much, this is great.
No.
In terms of your macronutrients, is there a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fats percentages that you should be having a day? I heard that, so I was doing a bit of research on like the amount of protein you should be having a day, and then what I read was to every kilo you should be eating 2 grams of protein per day. Is that accurate?
Yep. So for strength athletes, like rugby athletes, footy, things like that, there's a bit of a range. So the range for protein is 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo. So for you guys, as you have sort of a higher training load and things as well, I would be happy with that 2 grams per kilo per day. I did also have a similar question to kind of add to that, that had come through about protein sources, so I can speak a bit more to that as well. With your calories and things as well, I think it can get really caught up, like it can be quite difficult, time consuming, and put a bit of a burden on people if you have to track your calories all the time. Definitely if you have some goals and things in mind, I would suggest working with a dietitian to be able to see just if you're eating enough and to really get that sort of macro breakdown suited to your training. But I would have a main focus on your protein and carbohydrates. So you've already talked about protein. Carbs will also be a range for you guys, but it's usually about, for you guys being so active, it would be easily 50 to 60% of your daily calories from carbohydrates. And then the rest would just be made up with those healthy fats as well. But if you're sort of setting your day up, like I've sort of talked about today, having that even spread of protein throughout the day, having your main meals as mixed meals, carbohydrates, protein, healthy fats, and colour, you'll pretty much be on the right track as well. So yeah. Definitely, if you want to work on that a bit more, I'd be happy to help out if you have some other goals in mind. But yeah, does that sort of answer that?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Right.
George, we had some questions come up on the group chat just around iron. So one was how to increase your sort of iron. I think they were having trouble with the absorption, and they're taking, supplements, eating beef, lentils, and just not being able to absorb it. So I suppose, is that touching on what you spoke about before around eating it with something else maybe?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry if that was a bit wordy and a bit rushed as well. With the absorption, it can be a bit tricky. So basically it was talking about what helps the absorption of iron and what can stop the absorption or impair it, so we just can't absorb it as much. So to help it, pairing those iron-containing foods with a source of vitamin C. So orange is always one that people think of with vitamin C, and it is a good source, so having juice as well, but there's a lot of sort of veggies and things as well that contain vitamin C. So like kiwi fruit's a really good source in a fruit, and like your red capsicum is a good source as well. So yeah, trying to pair those with those sources of iron. And then caffeine, so in like tea and coffee, there's an acid in it that inhibits or stops the absorption of iron as well. So just avoiding caffeine containing foods and drinks around those meals when you're really, like if you're having a supplement or you're having a meal that you know has a really a source of iron in it or a decent amount, just try not to have it with anything containing caffeine at the time. Leave it for about an hour either side of it.
Awesome. Thanks, G. Another quick question, and you may or may not be able to answer. If someone in your family happens to have an iron deficiency, are you more likely to have one yourself?
I'm not sure if iron deficiency is a genetic, like if you inherit it. I know that you can be iron deficient when you have celiac disease, like that can be a sign of it and something that would be tested for. So in addition, to someone that was asking that their iron levels were still quite low, even though we're having supplements and things like that, if you come away from this and you try those couple of strategies I've talked about, if you haven't already, celiac might be something to just be tested for. So celiac disease is genetic, like you can inherit that from your family. So if your deficiency was from that, potentially, but yeah, I'm not sure if iron deficiency is normally otherwise. Sorry.
That's all good. And I suppose do you recommend sort of getting iron tested for women?
I would, yeah, just because we are at such a high risk as well. And I think like if you're someone that doesn't eat a lot of meat, I would, and you're not already doing those things like pairing it, I would say yes. Yeah, I would say, yeah, if you can sort of form a relationship with your doctor, have, quite a regular blood test every sort of 3 to 6 months is a great idea to have a blood test. It can test for a range of nutrients and things as well. If your doctor questions it, just tell them exactly why you're doing it. They really shouldn't, should be something they're on board with. But yeah, it's something really easy to sort of do if you're able to do a blood test, and yeah, just see what they think, because they should be the one that prescribes you a supplement rather than supplementing yourself. Awesome. I did have a question that someone had sent in earlier as well, which I think we answered part of it, but just other sources of protein as well. So I think being able to get enough in a day, this person said that they, apart from protein shakes and red meat, so I think we talked through a couple during it, but other sources of meat and things as well are really good sources of protein. From a vegetarian point of view, soy-based products, so like tofu and tempeh, dairy as well, so getting it from milk and yogurt. Cheese doesn't have a lot, but it's great. And then yeah, like legumes and lentils and things like that as well. Eggs is another good one. But yeah, if you're already making a protein shake, making it with milk is an easy way to get it, I guess, a bit more in. And then the other part of this question was about weighing meat raw. So I've been weighing my meat raw because it changes weight depending on how it's cooked. Is that correct? So I really love this question because in uni we were taught to weigh the meat after it was cooked, which makes no sense, because when you make a meal like a stir fry or a curry or something, and you're not expected to pick out every bit of meat and weigh it then. So you're 100% doing the right thing, whoever sent this in, weighing it beforehand. And if you're tracking it on something as well, the app, like an app like MyFitnessPal or something, they should have a raw or cooked option for that meat too. So just go for the raw option. But yeah, sounds like you're doing the right things otherwise.
Awesome.
Do you have any more?
Anyone else have any questions, girls?
I have a quick one. It's only little, but what are your thoughts on protein powder and like how regularly to have it, and when, etc., and which are the good types?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how it is for you guys at this sort of level of competition, whether there's any involvement with ASADA. Does that coach? There is?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can speak to this a bit now, but it might be something I can show you guys a bit better as well. So yeah, because ASADA's involved at this level, with a protein supplement, it's really important to make sure it's third-party batch tested. I do have I have a sheet.
I have got a bit of info, G, for the girls if they head to our handbook.
Awesome.
It's all sort of under the sports medicine and insurance. So you go to ASADA and supplements, and you guys can check all of your supplements. So you can check all your proteins, check the ingredients in your proteins. Yeah, what G's saying, it must be batch tested, and there's only a very few proteins and supplements you guys can use. And basically, as soon as you're starting training, so as of now, you can be tested at any time, just so you guys are aware.
Yeah, and it's a really disappointing thing, but it's just the way that supplement companies are. They want to pump out as many supplements as they can and make these products so they can make money off them, but they put other things in them as well that aren't safe, and yeah, you can get in quite a lot of trouble for it as well. So definitely use that link that Sammy has, but yeah, I can send some as well. But even within some brands, you do have to double check that that particular batch in that particular brand of protein or supplements has been tested as well. It's pretty tricky, but once you sort of have a brand that you can stick to, you might find one that you all at the club want to just stick with, because you know that business, that company will test all of theirs. That can be really handy. In regards to how often having a protein shake and what sort of type, I would say if you guys just go for a whey protein, so whey protein isolate is really affordable. The makeup of it, it's easier to digest as well. So some others can be quite heavy and are just like a bit harder for the body to sort of digest as well, whereas like a whey protein is easier to digest and is a really good sort of breakdown of nutrients as well. If you are vegan though, going for a mix of a pea and rice protein, so they've actually found that the pea and rice proteins are just as good as a whey protein now as well, which is fantastic for vegan or vegetarian athletes, that they can sort of get the same nutrition from those. And then how often, I think protein shakes and protein powder in general can be really, really handy, really easy to move around, easy to bring along to things as well. We just don't want it to replace our normal diet as well. So really want to make sure you're getting protein from the foods first, like what we've discussed today, and then just using like a protein powder or shake as something to sort of supplement your diet as well. So on top of that, so yeah, use it more as an easy thing, or you know, if you needed to get some protein in really quickly after a training, or have it on the go, use it then. But I wouldn't be having it at breakfast, lunch and dinner when it replaces having eggs, meat, legumes, lentils, things like that. I would definitely say have food as well, just because they give so many other nutrients with them as well, whereas protein's just protein pretty much. Yeah, hope that helped, Danny.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, G.
Cool. Anyone else before we wrap up?
I've actually. Oh, sorry. Next. Can I ask a question quickly?
Yep.
Georgia, thanks so much for this. This is really, really excellent. But I had a question about the different types of snacks for a different type of workout. So Sevens based, we've been doing a lot of running recently and stuff like that. But now, because the gyms will be open soon, is there much difference in being that you do a lot of strength work in the gym and not so much running? Is there a better snack for either workout?
So your snacks will be pretty similar, but your day will just look a bit different. So and your recovery will look a bit different as well. So once you're in the gym lifting weights and things as well, when we lift weights, muscles tear. So you really want to get that protein in as soon as possible after, to sort of replace that, and then that whole day that we were talking about. But beforehand, it'll still look pretty similar to what I've shown you, purely because whether it's to lift or to run, you need carbohydrates either way. So the snacks will look pretty similar. You may find though, and this can kind of differ to person as well, that you can maybe eat a bit more before a gym session, purely because you're maybe not running around as much, things aren't moving around as much. So again, a good time to sort of test out if you can have a bit more, because the way I kind of see it, you're wanting to sort of figure out how much you can eat, like as much as you can eat, and get as much nutrients and energy in to fuel your training and to fuel your games without feeling unwell. So you don't want to overdo it, but you really want to get to that sort of sweet spot of, yeah, I can have my main meal, I can have a really decent snack beforehand and feel great to get through a whole session or a whole game. But yeah, those snacks, you can combine a couple of them together. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, the carbohydrate based snack is sort of the main one you'd be wanting before either of those. Awesome.
Thanks.
We've had a couple messages come through, G.
Yep.
So this one, which I like, is olive oil, dark chocolate, and wait, it's just going away. Is olive oil, dark chocolate, and cheese healthy or not? If in moderation, how much moderation?
Wait, so right, having it and how much you have, is that? Yeah. So I love all of those things and eat all of those things very regularly. I think they're a very important part of a diet. So again, it just sort of depends on when you're having them. So if you're having them for enjoyment, which I think a lot of these things are for, olive oil, I think use all the time. Olive oil is really great. Extra virgin olive oil for athletes as well. Really great to include in your cooking all the time. But yeah, things like chocolate and cheese, we probably don't want to be having them too close to training or anything like that. But food is so much more than just fuel. It is enjoyment and having it around people as well. So yeah, big advocate of still including your chocolate and cheese and the things that you enjoy in your diet. And if you're smart about it and just have everything else set up well, like we've talked about today, 100% fine for you to still have those things. You definitely don't need to remove them from your diet at all.
Awesome. Another couple questions. So one of our girls does weightlifting. That's startup. So that's obviously a lot of, higher, heavier loads and quite brutal on the body. So the question was sort of any advice for amounts of food and snacks, if fruit doesn't cut it, or, can she have can it be a larger meal? If snacks aren't quite enough, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah.
And also with recovery for DOMs from that as well.
Yeah. So definitely, as I mentioned, it's going to vary person to person how much you can have. So yeah, for this person, like if it's not cutting it, having a banana or muesli bar, you can make it more of a mini meal, or maybe something like a sandwich and a piece of fruit is going to be better for you as well, which could be a meal for some, but could be more of a snack or a top up for you. But again, I would say just practicing that as well. So practicing how close or how far away from that training you need to have it, and just focusing on more carbohydrate containing foods that are closer to that training, purely just because when we start to include sort of proteins, okay, in small amounts, but when we start to include things that are quite high in fat, the reason that we don't have fat so close is it takes a lot more of our oxygen to digest fat. So we really want to be saving that for the work that we're about to do. So we don't want to be having it too close to that. And then in regards to weight training in general, chances are you're going to be needing a lot more food. I think once you combine that with sevens, I don't know if you guys are pre-season or doing your own sort of running and stuff at the moment, or hopefully training together really soon, I'd say that your requirements would be quite high. So chances are you might need to be eating a bit more without actually knowing what you're having at the moment. That's the general sort of thing that you would be needing.
Awesome. And I think last question, G, just around milk, because I feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of varied response around, is milk good, is it bad? So basically the question is, drinking a lot of milk bad? If so, how much moderation is recommended, or what's your sort of ideal day with milk, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's right. So I'd say again with just like anything, and like I said with the protein shakes, you just don't want it to be displacing something else. So at our age, I think it's 2.5 to sort of 3 serves of dairy in a day. But then being athletes as well, we can get away with a couple more serves as well. So I love milk. I think milk is awesome, really great for athletes as well. It not only, it provides, I think, like 8 to 10 nutrients in it. It's a good source of protein, calcium as well, which is really important. It hydrates us. So yeah, if you're someone that drinks a lot of milk, I think it's fine as long as you're getting in those other nutrients as well. Previously recommendations were having light milk, which I prefer, but full cream milk is just as good and can be enjoyed by anyone. So yeah, there was some new research, I think 2018, that yeah, the Heart Foundation have now said that full cream milk is fine unless you have another health condition. But for you guys, yeah, full cream or skim is absolutely fine.
Awesome. Thank you. I might stop the questions there, otherwise everyone's
Right.
about all these snacks. But, I might pass over to Mel, who's just gonna do a real
Georgia. Thanks so much, mate. This is the kind of reminder that we needed to, especially coming out of lockdown now, after all of us have been living next to the fridge for bloody 7 months or something. Just that really good reminder that we're athletes, and athletes require the fuel for us to perform the way we are building ourselves to perform. So just really thank you for that reminder about that positive relationship that we as women athletes should have. All the stuff about like periods and cycles and stuff, I know for sure that's right, because a week before my cycle is nuts. Like I forget what's good and what's not. So that's really, really helpful, and really looking forward to working with you a little bit more about around like when we're tapering up to comps and stuff like that, and those tips for just that discipline to throw something in your bag for afterwards, because that's the number one thing I find that I'm always forgetting to reward myself after busting ass, like doing all this training. So really, again, thank you so much for this reminder, and like we'll look forward to working with you again next time.
Thanks so much. As I mentioned, I love doing this sort of stuff and talking to groups as well. I love the million questions. So if you have more next time, definitely go for it as well. And yeah, if you grab my email there, I can give it to Sammy as well. Feel free to email at any time. I can help you guys out. And yeah, closer to competition, we can definitely do something even more specific to that if you need again. But yeah, if you just take away the stuff about menstrual cycles, getting a bit of an idea of that, I think we're hoping to line something up in a couple of weeks. That's sort of the plan at this stage, but I think it'll be really interesting if you don't already know about it. I know when I started to learn about it, I was like, whoa, this is very important from a player and a coach perspective as well. So yeah, hopefully everyone can be at the next one as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, G. Really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we'll be back in touch and we'll organise this next sort of meeting. Like, girls, I'll chuck everything up tonight, so the recording, G's sort of Instagram, and also her email, so you guys can reach out to her and ask any questions. And I'll also talk to G around sort of, if you guys want to get some further support outside of the program, what that might look like, getting George's help with that as well. So I'll put all that up tonight, and then as soon as we can, we'll organise this next meeting around our menstrual cycles and everything, which I think will be really insightful and something that's not often touched on, and it's starting to come out in Australia. So I'm really excited to hear about that. So thanks, G. I'll let you go, and